So, when did you start as a translator? Like, when did you start working during the wartime, pretty much?
Yeah. I was a student in Hong Kong,
Uh-huh.
about 16, when the Japanese invaded Hong Kong. So 3 months after the falling of Hong Kong to Japanese hands, I felt this is not a place for me. So I went to China.
Uh-huh.
At that time, the U.S. Army in China operated an infantry training school in Guilin. You know where Guilin?
No, it's set in the...
In China.
It's
Well,
in China.
Yeah.
Guilin.
Okay.
And they need interpreters to help training the Chinese troops to update them in war techniques and how to use modern weapons, up-to-date weapons. At that time, they were up-to-date weapons. Now it's obsolete.
So, okay. So, it was the U.S. Army that wanted like people to help them to work with the Chinese people. Okay.
To work with Chinese soldiers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how old were you when you got involved? Like, how old were you when you got involved with the U.S.
I
Army?
was barely 18.
Okay, so did they just want people who spoke both Chinese and English, or were there like any other qualifications?
American officers, they don't speak Chinese.
Right.
And Chinese troops, they don't speak English.
Okay.
So how can you train them?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, they recruited, in Guilin alone, we recruited about 300 interpreters, guys
Right.
like us. But, multi-languages.
Oh, okay. You were studying in Guilin during that time, though, right? You were studying as a
No,
student.
as a student in Hong Kong.
Oh, in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, we went to English school,
Right.
so we pick up English there.
Yeah. Okay.
Then in China, we pick up Chinese.
I see. So so how did the U.S. Army like recruit students from Hong Kong then? Like how were you recruited by the U.S. Army? How did the U.S. Army like contact you to work as an interpreter for them?
No, we contact them, they recruit.
Oh, so you guys contacted them for a
Yeah.
job? Okay.
They
I
put
see.
the posters on the streets asking people who's bilingual to join us because we need people who speak Chinese and English.
I see. Okay. So about when, like, what year was this? Like, did the war already start?
1943.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So like what did you do as a translator? Like,
Well, after recruitment, at first, they get us trained.
okay.
They separate into different subjects. Tactics, weapons. The weapons is separated into rifle, submachine gun, heavy machine gun, pistol, mortar, and 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. Light weapons.
Uh-huh.
They don't have cannons now,
Okay.
no artillery. And so, but in 1943, October, we joined the U.S. Army. We got an ITC, Infantry Training Center.
Mhm.
The situation was getting worse. The Japanese came to invade Guilin again. So the Americans flew us to Kunming, Yunnan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Close to Vietnam. Kunming. Kunming is still like within China border,
Oh, okay.
but like more close to Vietnam. So
Okay. Yeah.
Kunming is the main base of General Chinook Flying Tigers.
Right. The flying. Well, what were the flying tigers, son?
the base of the Flying Tigers in Guilin.
But what were the flying tigers? Sorry.
Flying Tigers, they have Chinese Air Force.
Oh, okay. I see.
General
Sorry.
Chinook.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, then in Kunming, they flew us to Ramgarh, India.
Uh-huh.
Ramgarh is a small town about west of Calcutta, Calcutta.
Yeah.
About 2 hours by train from Calcutta to the west. in the Ramgarh, Ramgarh. That was very big training center built by the British authorities to train Indian troops.
Okay.
Now they leased the whole base to Americans to train Chinese troops.
Oh, okay.
In Ramgarh, because of easy transportation and easy supplies of logistics, fuel no problem. So you everything from tanks, armor cars, artilleries, heavy artilleries, pilots. Oh, the training. The training ground was ideal to train infantry.
So, as a translator, did you also have to fight in? Were you also in combat as well?
We were assigned to combat units.
Okay.
So wherever the unit went, you follow them.
I see.
Because you are part of the troops. You are not sitting in the office, just interpreting. You have to fight. You have to do what they do. They fight, you fight. They rest, you rest.
So, wait, you mentioned earlier that the interpreters were split into different categories, like light machine gun, pistols, artillery, whatever. So, but do you like which unit were you a part of? Like,
First Infantry Regiment was a composite unit. The brigade called 32nd Brigade Provisional
Right.
consisted of 2 American regiments and 1 Chinese, that is us.
okay, I see.
Composite,
Right.
Chinese-American composite force.
Like, what eventually led you to stop being like with?
Altogether, we operated 7 campaigns during my 19 months in Burma and India and China.
So,
7 times. Real, you have to shoot the guy, through hand grenades.
right.
You're a real fighter.
Wow, that sounds
Now, this is
Did your regiment have like both American soldiers and Chinese soldiers in there, and you had to translate to them? Like, for example, in that situation, did you have to translate to the soldiers what your commander was saying?
we were very friendly with each other, a lot like brothers in fighting. Comrades, we call it comrades. Everybody is a brother. You have problems, I help you. I have problems, you help me.
I see. So,
So after we're winning this last fight, we now this was close to the Japanese surrender. The Japanese surrender on March 15, 1945. This was about 3 months before that. So after this fighting, they took a big rest,
oh, I see.
waiting for orders, and then came the good news, Japanese surrender.
During a lot of the fighting, like, what was the general feeling about the war? So did a lot of the soldiers like want to be
Because
there?
we have been well trained in India, Ramgarh, we have been well equipped, we have been materially, physically, and efficiently supported by logistic operations. So in all the 75, we had no fear. We knew that we were going to fight because we were so well prepared. And all the Chinese, they've been well fed by Americans. So they like fighting. The morale was so high.
As a soldier, do you remember like any specific events, like any memories that stick with you?
I should pay tribute to the American organization, APO, US Army Post Office. They were so efficient. The mail is very important to morale supporting of the fighting troops, because in Burma, in Cambodia, everybody has a family, has a wife, have children. They don't know what is happening at home.
Right.
And the home folk, they don't know what's happening in us, happening to us. in Burma. But thanks to the Army Post Office, they delivered the mail very efficiently. I was reading my brother's letter, two from my mother, in the trench 3 times. So that was really appeasing.
Did you?
We feel so relieved what's happening at home. This is a real morale supporting.
Oh, so that must have been why a lot of the soldiers weren't that didn't feel that bad about like fighting in the war. Was that why a lot of the soldiers didn't feel bad about fighting in the war because they knew that their family was okay and oh okay.
So after reading the letters, so it's quite a few ones sending right back to home because my elder brother was in Chongqing at that time.
Oh.
He was the first one to receive all my mail from Burma, from combat.
So in terms of general like how people felt, like was there like sort of a divide between the Chinese soldiers and like the British or the American soldiers? Was there like sort of a divide between the Chinese soldiers and the American or the British soldiers? Like did you guys?
No, at first everybody was the Allied band.
Right.
Just under one name, Allied forces, Chinese, American, British, French.
So like it was like really I guess cohesive, like put together, right? So there wasn't like any sort of like.
We really feel that our spirit was together. Although we may be thousands of miles apart, they were in Europe, we were in Far East.
I see. So you guys didn't like face any discrimination or like racism by like the white soldiers, you know? Did you guys like face any racism or discrimination within the army? Racism?
I actually don't get. Well, you have to study it.
Did you guys face any racism or like discrimination by
racism?
Yeah.
I don't feel any.
I see. So
because everybody was fighting unit. You fought against Japanese, I fought against the Japanese, he fought against the Japanese. Everybody had the same goal.
I see. So just have a couple of questions about how the people felt about various things. So how did you guys feel about like the Japanese at the time, or I guess yeah, like Japan as a whole, just like the enemy, or did you guys have any?
How do the Japanese people feel?
No, like how did you guys view the Japanese soldiers?
Now.
Back then, like, what did you think of the Japanese at the time?
By nature, the Japanese and invading people, they still now feel that in the whole Asia Far East, Japanese is the most superior nation, not Chinese, not India now. So they still blossom. They still dream of one day coming back to China, to rule over China, by whatever means, maybe by force, by peaceful arrangement. They still have some. They will never give up.
Okay, and how did you guys feel about like Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalists, while you were fighting?
At first, I admired this guy. But now, I feel he is one of the biggest traitors of China, because after returning to Taiwan, he invited the Japanese generals who have invading experience in China to went to Taiwan and to retrain their officers, intending to retake China by Japanese.
Oh.
So my admiration totally collapsed about him.
I see.
I thought he was a hero, saved China, but now he's trying to, after Japanese help him again to retake China because of his own ambition
Because you wanted to be the ruler, or be in power, right? I see.
because of his own personal ambition,
Mhm.
which is bad.
What about Mao, the communists? Mao?
Communist,
Yeah.
I'm not a communist, I'm not a nationalist, but I like to see China growing in almost every respect. And frankly, I'm a little surprised. In a period of only about 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
they came to this step. This is not easy at all. Of course, every country has problems, big problems, small problems, like Canada, the States, England, Germany, France. Everybody has problems. But dictatorship in China today, in Beijing today, I think they have the right access. Because this is the only way to save China. Time. There's no time to lose.
Right, right. And so I know you went to Hong Kong after World War II, but how did you feel about the fighting back in China? Did you like? I know you didn't want to be a part of it, but like, did you care about who would have won it, or and how did you feel when the
I
communists
knew.
won?
The resistance of nationalists was weakening.
Mhm.
I was one of the members fighting for. If they asked me to fight again, I wouldn't do it again. No more fighting for me.
Mhm.
Because communists was very well organized.
Right.
Their morale was high. I knew that.
Okay.
It was only a matter
Mhm.
of time that nationalism went totally collapsed. Because they were so corrupt. Oh, everybody was busy making money out of the war. Because they feel they have suffered enough. They want to enjoy it
Right.
with
Right.
money.
Okay.
So, were you upset that the nationalists were going to lose, or like, were you upset that the people were fighting even after the war?
No, I'm not upset. I knew how they acted. This is human nature.
Mhm.
After suffering so much, you want to enjoy,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Before it's too late.
Of course. So back to the start of the war. I know the U.S. Army recruited you guys from school. What made you want to join?
What made me want to join?
Yeah.
From my education stuff from a kindergarten, primary school, high school. I received total education of how to love your country, leave China.
Right.
You know, youngsters, when they're instigated by the doctrines, education, by the
Mhm.
teachers, you feel, yeah, I should be able to do something for my country.
Of course. Yeah. Wow. So it was like patriotism then. You wanted to help China defend.
Yeah, I want to
defend
help
itself.
China. As a youngster, not now.
What was daily life during the fighting like? Like, how much time did you guys get to sleep, to eat, to rest, or was most of it like fighting or waiting for orders?
The U.S. Army had a rule in a normal march. It's every single day after 10 or 15 miles, no, 10 or 13 miles marching, you take a rest. Because you are not walking just barehanded, you have maybe the bag, the duffel bag maybe 60 pounds. Bullets and guns, hand grenades, bayonets, jungle knives.
Right. Right.
It's heavy. And then rations. Yeah.
Okay.
You said that earlier you were stronger than the Japanese. Was it just because of weapons, or was it also because of the tactics or the organization? Like, why were you so much stronger than the Japanese?
Why we were much stronger than the Japanese?
Yeah, why?
Number one, because the supply line of the Japanese from Malaya, Singapore up to Burma was every day bombed by U.S. planes.
Mm.
They disrupted the railroad, highways, เพราะว่าอย่าพ้นใน supply line you cannot fight a war with bare hand you have the ammunition guns replacements maintenance of weapons food
Right. Okay.
so every bridge
Yeah.
was bombed by U.S. airplanes.
What were you doing when the Japanese first invaded China? Do you remember that moment?
What do I do with the Japanese?
First invaded China.
First invaded China.
Yeah.
They started invading China in 1931, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was too small.
Right.
I only knew the Japanese was an invader to China when I went to primary school, grade 6.
Mm-hmm.
All the education, all the nationalized education.
So you guys knew there, but did it affect your daily life at all? Like, did you guys like were you close to any of the fighting or the bombings or anything?
I what?
Were you? Did it affect your daily life outside of just learning about it in school? Like, did you
Outside
see
of what?
outside of learning about the Japanese invasion in school? Did it affect your daily?
Oh yeah. We got the newspaper every day.
Oh.
They give for war news every day.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. So, do you remember or where were you during the Battle of Hong Kong? When I think it was the Canadian troops that came into Hong Kong.
December the 8th,
Mm-hmm.
1941. They start bomb Hong Kong, Pearl Harbor.
Right. So you weren't in Hong Kong at the time.
I was in Hong Kong.
You were.
I was on the road on the way to school. I didn't know what was happening.
Uh-huh.
And then news came from the radio said the Japanese declared war in Hong Kong. Tai Tak airport was being bombed.
Okay. So
We know something is going to change very abruptly.
So at the time, how did the people react to that?
Like me, at first they don't believe it.
Oh.
And then when the radio confirmed it was a fact, everybody, for a moment, they just don't know what to do. Because everybody was working so normally. And then came this news. Well, that was in a mess for a whole week.
wow.
The boss, the bank, they just don't know what to do with the money, with the gold bullion. 匯豐銀行好多金俾日本仔搶咗佢，你冇準備噶嘛，完全
Yeah.
忽然間冚嚟，你想走都唔走到，為到冚唪唥入水集中營。
So during like after all of this, did you didn't feel I guess discriminated against? Because I know you had to especially as a translator, you had to interact with the American troops a lot. So was there like no tension between the two groups? Like, was there any tension between the Chinese people and the American people?
Superficially, no.
Right.
Diplomatically, no. They're still friends, head and shoulders. But actually,
So like, what little things like I guess let you notice like the underlying tension or.
well, you can notice. I cannot give you a full description, but
Right.
you feel.
Oh.
You can feel in your bones that something is
Something isn't right.
not agreeable with each other.
I see. So it was mostly just the fighting that brought everyone together, at least for the moment.
Yeah.
Right. So you were part of a lot of campaigns during the war.
I what?
Your I guess unit was part of a lot of campaigns during the war. Are any of them like particularly memorable or that still stick with you? Do you?
Now, I think after such a long time, most of my comrades, they're not in the war anymore. I should be one of the guy with a long life. I'm 90 years old this year. I was born 1926. This is 2016.
Wow. It's very fortunate.
I'm lucky. that I'm still here, although I'm suffering from all kinds of pains. But that's normal to all folks.
Right. Thank you so much for letting us
Thank
do
you
this.
for your visit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, young man.
This was
Thank you.
very, very interesting. Thank you
Well,
so much.
I don't even know your name.
I'm Josh.
Jack.